Jim Joyce, you did your hair
Season.
today.
I dressed it up for you, man.
I
Season.
shaved. I shaved after days of not shaving. I decided to shave this morning just for the show.
Yeah, you got a new T-shirt as well. What's the
Oh, I don't know. What is it? I don't. What does it say?
freedom research creativity? Yeah, it seems like
Yeah, that. I mean, I don't do that much research, but the creativity, freedom. I like freedom. But so you're back from Dingle.
yeah, back from Dingle. So
I never knew Dingle existed until you said it. But
yeah, it's super popular with Americans visiting Ireland. So it's in the county of Kerry, and it's what I say southwest most part of Ireland. And we saw the dolphin. I think we talked about it last time. We met this 43-year-old dolphin named Fungi, which
yeah.
was
So I don't remember if we actually talked about it, but I definitely saw the pictures on Facebook. So fungi. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So we went down there, had a staycation in Ireland. It's actually a big deal now because allegedly, like some Americans are flying into Europe through Ireland right now because the restrictions aren't as tight. I don't know if I heard
Really?
this. So if
No, I'm sneaking in. I miss Europe.
Yeah, so we see people getting a little like if they hear an American accent, they get a little like, "What are you doing here, man? Like, keep your virus to yourself," you know. Oh, sorry, got the already.
Uh, by the way, not to switch topics on you because we already have our guest waiting for
Right.
a few minutes. But I don't know if you've seen any aside from the T-shirt. Like my pecs are getting much better, right? Like it's my day 5.
Right.
I tagged you. I haven't seen you actually do any, so I'm shaming you. It's for a good cause. Our
Yeah,
friend
yeah. No,
Marco.
I'm
All
in.
right, all right.
Today's the day. We'll send it to you on Facebook. I'm trying to keep my profile to a minimum.
I I hear you. No. I listen. You got to prioritize. Is it a shot of digital health? But this
Yeah,
is the beauty of it. We can combine the two, right? It's 25
absolutely.
push-ups,
No,
25 days.
it's a good cause. Hey,
Um,
before
yeah.
we let our guest in, I just wanted to do a shout out to I'm involved or we contribute Health Week, and we help patients that are on injectable medication. And every year we are involved with a nonprofit organization called the Magic Foundation, and they're running their big annual event, and it's for children that suffer from endocrine disorders. So every year in Chicago, they bring literally thousands of children to this like phenomenal facility and entertain them, and then get the parents to connect with each other. So it's one of the most beautiful things that I've had the pleasure of being involved with. So they're running their conference. Unfortunately, the kids can't come this year,
Yeah.
but
Understood.
all these doctors, these pediatric endocrinologists, for free, go and chat with the patients and help people connect on kind of kids that have different problems. But it's absolutely for a day, these kids that suffer from a lot of conditions are just seeing people that are like them. So it's just this beautiful conference, and they have their conference on Friday. So I want to make a note of that. A little shot of health.
Good. No, good cause. Absolutely. It is unfortunate in these cases, right? But also smart move. Obviously, for these children cannot be exposed. So, um, with that, actually, let's switch gears to our next guest. I'm actually excited. Yes, we're back to America with our next guest at the bar.
Great.
You told me something about him, his background, which I didn't know from the Health Excel podcast, which we'll link that. It was an awesome interview. I learned quite a lot about our next guest. But I'll let you do the little intro because it has to do something with where you are.
Yeah. So okay. So Bill Taranto is our guest. I'm assuming we've got that right.
Yes.
Recorded right. Bill Taranto. So he's the head of Merck, and we'll let him describe his exact title, but head of Merck's very large venture fund, kind of the pioneer in really corporate digital health investing. Had built up, I think, J&J's venture practice in a way, kind of totally unique model. We'll let him describe it. Has been involved in some of the biggest successes. But Bill, despite having a name of Bill Taranto and kind of dark black hair and from New Jersey, he's actually of Irish descent. His mom is Irish. So he spent a lot of time
I would have
visiting.
never guessed. I would have never guessed. So let's do him the honors. I'll admit him.
Great. So yeah, I see Bill misses getting on a plane. Here we go.
All right, boys.
Mr.
Hey,
Wow.
how are you, Jim?
Hey, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great. I got my shot glass because I'm ready for my shot of digital health.
Awesome. You're actually the first guest that did that. You know what? You have inspired me. You guys
Yeah.
talk amongst yourself for 10 seconds. I'll be back.
Right.
Just me and Jim. Whenever we have to have a conversation, we have to drink.
Right. It's making me a little nervous that the shot's empty, Bill.
Well, I was waiting. You said 2 o'clock. Now it's 10 after.
I brought the
So
bottle.
10
Hold on.
late.
Let me pour it right now.
Thank you.
So,
Man, you look
Bill,
good. What happened to you? I think you're looking trim and fit.
Yeah, thank you. I one advantage, just have a lot of time to work out, a lot of time to eat healthy, not doing the
Yeah.
crazy travel, that you do when you're got the job that we have. So, from that perspective, it's been a bit of a blessing, but it's still an unfortunate situation. But
and I would have loved to be right next to you, probably with a mask on or 6 feet away. And I kind of mapped it out. It's a solid way over an hour drive. So
yeah.
And the acoustics. So this is better, and then I'll come hang out another time.
Yeah. We'd love to have you at the Taranto estate here.
Right. Do you make people wear a mask when they go in the pool?
We only let certain people in the pool at this point. I got a pond out front, so it's the pool or the pond.
Okay. Nice. So listen, Bill, so before we go, we'll let you, I was just giving you a simple introduction, but maybe just give us your quick introduction of what you do for people that don't know.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. Name's Bill Taranto. I'm president of the Merck Global Health Innovation Fund, which is the Merck corporate venture fund that's dedicated 100% to digital health. We started the fund in 2010, so we're in our 11th year. We're a $500 million evergreen fund. We've evergreened it a couple of times now, so we're done really well financially. We've done, in fact, we just looked at the stats the other day. We've done over 60 investments. We've had 21 exits. We've acquired 4 companies. We've spun out 4 companies. So, the fund's done extremely well. Today, our remit's slightly changed since the day I started. Originally, the fund was set up to give Merck's optionality around M&A, where we were looking to acquire companies and really drive revenue and EPS for Merck. Today, not that remit has disappeared, but we're a little more focused on Merck as a company. So, for example, with Merck being an oncology company today, we're heavily focused on our investments in the oncology space. But we still do lots of HIT infrastructure that we used to do in the past, but all digital related. And as you may recall, the one phrase we always use is data is the currency we're going to use to transact in the future markets. So we want all our companies to be data companies. So we're probably one of the largest, if not the largest, digital health investor. We're pretty good size from an investor. We're growth equity, mostly Series C or later. We do an A and B round occasionally, but we don't do any startup or seed capital.
Right.
So Bill, for our viewers and listeners, more than probably for the 2 of us.
All 10 of them.
My one fan. Is Sarah on the phone?
But
is Sarah watching? Because she's my one fan.
Wait, send her. I forgot the signal we've sent you before, but she'll pick it up. Yeah, that's it. That was it. You were talking about fans. We just a little update for Jim. We didn't get to do that. We now have 88 subscribers to our YouTube channel. 88.
Great.
And close to 900 unique viewers. But anyway, we're trying to hit Joe Rogan. Growth.
Only a matter of time.
Exactly, just persistence. But back to it intrigues, and I actually get that question a lot myself. I don't know why. I think part of it due to my previous job. What would you say to our viewers the biggest difference between a corporate VC and a VC?
I would say in the traditional corporate VC, and we're a little different, I'll explain the difference, but what you normally see is in a corporate VC, their priority is strategic, and they may not be as focused on the financial returns. Obviously, a private VC firm is financial first. I would say what makes us a little differentiated is we're actually we're both financial and strategic, but we are financial first. You know, our priority is to build a good company that we can exit, and whether it exits to Merck or not remains to be seen. But the idea is to build a solid company in which us as an investor and the shareholders all participate in that wealth. And that's our primary goal. And then we look at it, then secondarily, if we can get a strategic component, for example, it's a digital health asset in oncology, that's even better, but it doesn't always have to be. But I would say corporate ventures typically are more strategic than financial, though some are certainly like us that focus on the financial as well. But we are certainly both financial and strategic, with financial coming first.
Yeah, yeah.
And as a corporate VC, sorry, Jim, I'm like, even though I do talk to Bill constantly, well, I wouldn't say constantly, but quite a bit. But we have never talked about this topic of kind of the corporate VC. I remember getting invites every year, and I just haven't gone to Health Evolutions, which is very much focused, you know, yes, it was a CVC conference, I would say, but highly focused on payers, insurers. And I think you were, for the most part, one of the few odd one out representing pharma, right? Or
We
not?
were. When Health Evolution first started, today they have a corporate venturing track at Health Evolution Partners, their conference, and we have over 30 corporate ventures there. I think the biggest one, though, is the Global Corporate Venturing Conference, which I was at the very first one 10 years ago, and we had maybe 20 corporates. You know, the one that was held last year, I'll say that was live in California, had over 800 participants, probably close to 400 corporate venture firms showing up. And what it's showing you is the rise of the corporate venture. I think what a lot of corporate venture or corporates have realized is that they know their industry as well as anybody. And if they can hire the right talent and put the right capital to use, you can do this as well as any private firm. And we've certainly shown, you know, financially, we've made plenty of capital. So that's not an issue. But I think that's what you're noticing is that corporates are taking it into their own hands now, not doing as many LP investments or fund-to-fund investments, and really driving their own destiny versus, you know, farming it out through, private firms. And I read a stat, I think, you know, there's something in the last few years, there's something like over 3,500 corporate venture firms globally now. I mean, almost every corporate in every industry has a firm now.
Yeah, it's a total power. I mean, I was thinking about, like, we always mention our connected here, our buddy Martin Kelly and these things podcasts. But like when because he came from the IBM Venture Group, right? And it was such a brilliant power play at the time when they set up the venture group in order to get visibility to what was happening in the ecosystem. You know, they set it up and they gave themselves access, but didn't seem like there was a ton of people doing that way back then. Like, does it ever get in a situation where you're getting, like, with all these new corporate ventures, that instead of getting outbid or kind of fighting for a seat from venture firms, that it's other corporate venture firms that you're kind of fighting for a seat for? Or is there only one corporate venture guy in every deal, or if there is a deal?
No, in fact, we just, we're so busy. You wouldn't think COVID was affecting us in any way. We just had a board meeting this morning, and we got approval for 3 additional new deals, and one of them actually has 4 other corporates as the investors, no private firms. So it's not so much, I wouldn't say it's competition. It's a lot of different types of corporates that bring different things. And in this particular investment, we're the only pharma corporate, but there's other corporates. There's a technology player. There's a health system in there. There's I think actually 2 technology players. So there's just different types of corporates that I think get involved. We tend to see in our syndicates, we're usually the only corporate. There may be one other, and then there's typically 2 or 3 private private firms that are typically in the syndicate. But there's usually more than one corporate now, which I think is different than 10 years ago. You'll see more corporates now within syndicates and multiple corporates. And we invest with everybody. We'll invest with our competitors. We're about building a good company that services healthcare. And if it serves all of pharma, that's great. Where the differentiation comes is for Merck, they've got to understand how to use that asset and build it to their advantage. And that's where the competitive advantage comes. But these assets need to exist in the world. And that's what we think about first, is building a good company. It exists in the healthcare world, and then everybody should learn how to use it. And then that's where you develop your own competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So typically, you mentioned earlier, right, Series B and above. And I learned something new, actually, listening to Health Excel podcast you were on. That was still when we were all traveling and we saw each other in wonderful Barcelona, Spain.
Yes.
Good old days. Sorry, I just went there for a second, and you know,
back to your mother-in-law's garage in New Jersey.
Right.
I mean, you know, it is a nice setup. I have the fan, it's sunshine, but anyway, so I learned something which I don't want to repeat a lot of the stuff. So I would urge the listeners will wake it up. But I think maybe talk about you invested Series B and above, and then I learned that you actually have a private equity vehicle as well. Because the way, I kind of look at it maybe more simplistically from early stage, there's, I don't know, I can probably name 30 different patient-physician communication platforms just in the state of New Jersey. I mean, I'm all exaggerating, but you know what I mean, right? And then the best ones kind of survive and et cetera. Talk a little bit to us and the listeners about private equity. Why?
Yeah, so in 2013, we started our private equity firm. And if you recall, we do something called ecosystem investing, where we start with an anchor tenant, which solves maybe 50% of a healthcare problem we're trying to solve, and then we invest around it to fill in the gaps. But what ends up happening in healthcare, as you well know, is scaling, right? How do you scale an asset that might start locally and regionally? And it doesn't matter, it's very much in the States as it is outside the States. Everything starts locally and regionally, and how do you expand that? And how do you build scale and revenue? And originally the concept was, if you look at Merck and their P&L, $100 million company on a $16 billion P&L doesn't have any impact. But $1 billion company is like a little brand. And so what we thought was, venture capital is one tool in the toolbox about external innovation. You have M&A, and then we thought if we could use private equity, where we would use that vehicle to start to cobble companies together that we thought could bring a fully integrated solution and build scale. That's why we ended up doing that. Now, originally, obviously, it was set up for Merck to, drive M&A for Merck. But what we learned is where that tool comes really, in place is that no matter what, there's still a scaling problem within healthcare. How do you build, large scale across, not only the U.S. but internationally? And the private equity firm allows us to do that. It allows us to put together more capital with larger partners than we would have with the venture fund. Typically our venture fund does, anywhere from $5 to $15 million first investment is our sweet spot, and follow-on investment in the same. So we might put together 30 million of capital for a single entity. With the private equity firm, we can do anywhere from 50 to 100 to $200 million commitment with others. And when you have that kind of capital, you could build the scale that you need in healthcare. And so we've done that on a number of occasions in a lot of different sort of parts of healthcare, and it works really well. Now, not everybody does that, but it was the right tool for us in order to build scale, especially around the concept of M&A. Because forgetting Merck even for a moment, anybody that wants to buy anything large scale in M&A is going to want the revenue. They're going to want the the EBITDA, and they're going to want lots of ability to access clients. And so you can't just do that with point solutions. And that's always been our philosophy, that point solutions don't really work ultimately in healthcare. And how do you get beyond the point solution? Well, you've got to bring assets together. And for us, that vehicle is our private equity firm.
Yeah. Let's talk like what's going on. So nothing slowed down since we all got locked in, right? For you, like, are you back-to-back Zoom call, team calls, doing deals virtually? Like, has the pace touched at all? What are you seeing?
Yeah, for us, it's been unusual. I was talking to my boss the other day and just commenting that you wouldn't think anything was wrong. Since March.
Sorry, you have a boss?
I do actually. I do actually. I know it seems weird because we're so independent, but I actually do report to somebody in Merck. But rarely, but I do. What we found is we've done 2 spin-outs out of Merck. We've done 3 follow-on investments, and we've done 5 new investments all in this period of time. What's different, example, we got approval today for a company that's in cold storage shipping, and we couldn't do any of the normal manufacturing due diligence we would have done in person. So we did everything virtually. We did virtual tours. We met the management team virtually. We actually haven't in person met anybody on that team, but it was a great company, strong management team. We were able to do everything we could virtually. I think, though, ultimately, there is going to require some travel in the future. I still think you need that personal interaction with your companies. I think what we've learned, though, is a couple things. One is we don't need as many face-to-face board meetings, right? You can certainly do a few a year virtually. our diligence process has been more streamlined. We don't need to do everything in person. So instead of taking the 4 or 5 trips we used to do, maybe we need 1 trip. Right. And so I think what this has taught us is that technology and these type of, things that we're doing today can work, but you got to be very disciplined. So we follow our same process. We still have our legal due diligence. We just do it a little differently than we did. It's comprehensive. We're just not getting on an airplane. But what I think part of the reason that also answer your question, why we're so busy, is healthcare in and of itself. People are realizing how important healthcare is in this type of, not only pandemic that we're having, but overall health within this pandemic. Forgetting COVID for a minute, right? This is important. So I think it's just a different way of doing business, and I think healthcare is driving a lot of the business. So I think we're in a fortunate industry.
But who do you think, like when we look at the companies, so startups in this space, like, digital health startups that are new, like we had Rob Garber on, which I know you, yeah. And he was talking, okay, this is right at the beginning. I think, Rob had the full beard going on. This is right at the beginning of all this happening. And he was like, yeah,
he's wrapping it around himself now, but probably I have to check.
Yeah, he's got that wrapped. But he's like flight to quality. He's like, this is going to be a net positive for digital health assets. It's going to be a big flight to quality. Like, who do you think any of the early stage companies, are they going to suffer? Do they need still the hand holding in person? And then are there going to be too many? Is going to be too much competition now because everyone wants a telehealth offering? What's your take on who wins and who loses?
Yeah, that's a great question. My personal viewpoint is that the earlier stage companies are still going to struggle. We're fortunate because we do growth, right? We're Series C or later. These are companies with plenty of revenue already. They have customers. I think where you're going to see the struggle within healthcare, at least for now, until we can get some hand holding and more in person, is the early stage. The startup and the seed capital, I think, is going to suffer. And maybe even some of the A round companies are going to suffer.
Yeah.
Simply because I do think there's and I mean this from a total company perspective, an immaturity to those companies, right? Whether it's the management team, their product, the way they go to market. There's all these sorts of things that have to happen for those companies to even evolve to a seed round.
Right.
So I think my viewpoint is those are the ones that probably are suffering right now. And I think, there's a lot of companies starting that are trying to develop assets that are COVID related. I think those companies are going to struggle as well. I think companies that have a platform that can adopt it, COVID related items are going to do better because they already have a built-in platform. They probably already have a revenue base. So I do believe that the earlier stage companies are going to struggle at this point.
Yeah. And what do you think? So we were introducing you before as Irish. We were saying how you're Irish. You're
and Italian. Can't forget the last name either.
That's what
my mother will claim I'm full Irish, and my dad would claim I'm full Italian. But there's a 50.
But your mom was actually born in Ireland, right?
She's Irish. Yeah, she's Murphy's her maiden name, and my daughter is named. My daughter's Bryn Murphy Taranto. How's that for Irish Italian?
Right. Let's take it.
I know you're married to an Italian woman. I saw your families on your last episode, which are very lovely families, by the way.
Thanks. We're dying.
By the way, let's see if you can exceed it. I've noticed, Jim, something like if I look at our trends, the ones with like the big spikes is the first one that you and I did,
right? And
the ones with our wives and better halves. Everybody else, like, good numbers. Let's see, Bill, if we can, you're gonna have to spread the word.
I will. Where's my kid? They are today.
I think they're better looking than us. I think that was
right. Exactly.
But yeah, so so like take like a country like Ireland, right? Like, with like, med tech sector and everything else, without the travel, without the be able to connectivity. What's your thinking about international business? Like Eugene's going to be setting up in Barcelona and traveling around the world. Does that get impeded?
Hopefully.
No, I think it's good. We're obviously Francesca, dear friend who worked for us. She had established our European unit, and we're relaunching it again. We're looking, but we realized no matter what, we still have to place somebody within Europe. It's an important market. They can't be doing it from the U.S., which we've sort of attempted to do since Francesca moved on. But I think you still need local people that can travel across Europe. I think Eugene's is going to be in a perfect position to do that. We're hoping to do that. I don't care again where they live as long as they're living in Europe, because
is that a job offer on.
Well, anybody but Eugene. He's a hack.
I'm happily married to your coach and Marina, my wife. So
Right. But the point is, I think right now I would say we're struggling with a little access to European companies because we're not.
Yeah.
With the COVID situation, we're probably not doing the normal engagement that we would do. But I think it's important for us as a fund to have somebody placed in Europe, which we will do again, and re-pick that up. I think there's tremendous assets that sit within Europe. I'm still not sure 100% how well these assets are portable to the U.S. just yet because of pricing, but, and scale, right? We see a lot of assets that stay within country, but I still think it's an important market, especially Europe and Asia, for us anyway. And so our first step is to reestablish Europe, and that's our goal.
Right.
You mentioned, portability, right, from Europe to US. I would even go the next step, portability across the European Union countries, right? Because, I think, and obviously the three of us know this, but, many just sitting in US kind of thing, it's Europe. But, if you're an entrepreneur in Belgium, just because you got something approved and you got a market fit and the money flows, doesn't mean it will translate to Netherlands, which is, 1 hour drive from there.
Right.
And that's always our issue with investing in Europe, right? I mean, all the assets that we've looked at, our main goal is, what is, to your point, portability across country, let alone the scalability within country, right? Because we see a lot of great assets coming out of the Nordic, countries, but they're small states, so to speak, in the sense of, 3 to 5 million people, which is, a small company, but the next question just becomes: can it go across the Scandinavian countries? Can it go across Europe? Can it go even towards Asia? And I think that's always our struggle ultimately with some of these companies, and it still remains to be seen. I don't have a good answer. The investments we have done outside the U.S. have done okay, but we still struggle with scale.
I'm actually trying to come up with, and maybe Jim and Bill, the example that comes to mind as far as like scaling outside of one country is probably like Babylon is one, right? I mean, they've hit, quite a bit, but like name, Cree, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's also from the Nordics, right? They went to UK now. I don't know, name.
Silver Cloud is in the U.S.
Beacon, Silver Cloud, yeah.
Well, there are certain things at port, right? So anything in monitoring, I think scales, right? Because it's especially if it has a SaaS backbone to it. Because we're seeing even with one of our portfolio companies, Preventus, we've been able to scale outside the U.S. But I see monitoring companies being able to scale. I see anything that's a software-based company can scale. If it's a very specific product to a specific region, I think those tend to struggle a little bit. But look, it's like anything. It can happen. But it's a longer haul, I think. Look, it's easier to scale across the U.S. than it is to scale across Europe.
Right, and I think that what we're finding is, what that translate, like there are a lot of similarities, but as we go into the U.S., it's been a tougher market for us to crack. And like you take like Silver Cloud, which phenomenal company, but they literally have been at it for years. I mean, the benefit of being in a small, like they started as an Irish company, and the benefit of being in it, you have to get off the island really quickly to get any scale. Like you can't stay here. So usually you go to the UK, right away. But the UK, you go UK or US right away.
No.
But even in the UK, right, you're still local and regional because you go to one of the, what do they call
Trust.
them? You go to a trust first, and then you try to expand across the trust. So I still even think that's not an easy thing to do, but it's because there's so many good assets outside the U.S. as well, and we just have to figure out, how we bring those either here. Right. Or how do we build? And again, one of our ideas is we've never launched our private equity from outside the U.S. Could we use that kind of capital to, because if you can scale companies that are similar in different countries, that begins to get you. Like, is there if we were going to do a Silver Cloud type investment, is there a Silver Cloud that sits in Asia, a similar type company? Well, and could we merge them together? Those are the type of things that we think are the best way to do it. From a capital perspective and to a scaling perspective, is really relaunching our private equity firm outside the U.S.
You brought up Asia. I was actually going to ask you because we've been spending some time on Europe, together and etc. Your quick view on Asia, because I'm the timekeeper too, so we're getting close.
Asia for us, the big thing we're looking at in Asia is the data market. So we're looking for data assets that give Merck or the industry access to data that they don't typically have access to today. We're looking, I would call it more HIT infrastructure that we're looking at in Asia versus anything else versus the service solution side. We're looking at data security, privacy, and storage, data aggregation, integration, and harmonization, data analytics, and informatics. And that's what we're mostly looking at in the Asia market today. And I would say even more specifically, China is our main market that we're looking at from a data perspective right now.
Hit it. You got it.
I don't want to. Well, so hold on. Before we do, I know you don't have a drink, but I'm gonna. This is. It reached us to season 2. Well, since Bill brought a shot, I'm just gonna. I do have a call in half an hour, so.
So Bill,
at least virtual cheers.
We can talk forever, right?
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Exactly. So.
When's the next, so when are you back on flights?
I think, well, look, it's all personal, right? I think I'd be more comfortable if there was a treatment versus necessarily a vaccine. Like if I knew I wasn't gonna be the guy on the ventilator, perhaps that would be more comforting. I think in the fall, I think if we can get past at least what's happening in the U.S. right now, which is an outbreak, in certain states, I think potentially the fall, maybe September, October, I think we'll be back doing some basic flying. I'm probably more comfortable going to Europe than I am traveling across the U.S. at the moment. But, we're on lockdown, but Merck's put us on lockdown in the sense that all Merck said to us is that if you can do your job remotely, then don't worry about coming into an office. And then certainly we have restrictions on flying just based on country rules and state rules. So, I would say right now our entire team, which is not big, it's only 6 people, we're all just working out of our homes, and it's been effective. So.
I'm still amazed that your team is so lean and you're doing so many things. So just kudos on that.
Thank you. Well, I think it's always been that way. We've never been a big team. The largest we've ever gotten is 7 people, and but part of it is, look, most of these people that come into our group are very experienced. The one disadvantage to our group is we have no junior people. They're all experienced, seasoned investors. They all know how to do everything from M&A, venture capital to private equity. So they're well experienced, well trained in the toolkits that we want to deploy, and that says help. And the other thing too is you may not know, but Joe Volpe, who's on my team, was with me at Jane. He's been with me almost since 1999.
Wow.
The least tenured person that's been with me on my team is Prem Tukamzi. He's been 5 years. Everybody else has been with me 11 years and 10 years. I mean, the team's never changed. Other than Francesca moving on to a better opportunity, but even she was with us, I think, 4 years before she moved on. So it's been the exact same team almost since I started. I brought, I brought 3 people from J&J, and they're still here. So they
either love you or just afraid to leave you.
Well, I think, that's it. I rule an iron fist. No, they're loyal, but they're good. And look, there's a lot said for working in the corporate too. There's some things we don't have to worry about, like fundraising, and we certainly get certain types of equity that others don't get. But
before we break, so what's blown like when we think about what's happened in the last 3 months, like all the innovation, everything that's happened, like what's blown you away? Like you started your digital health fund, so you're investing 10 years ago. Is it 10 years ago? Yeah. So what's blown you away? What's blown you away since you started right now? What's thrown you off guard that you didn't think was going to happen in terms of digital health assets?
Well, I think you're starting to see increased adoptability but it was done because of a pandemic, right? Telehealth still wasn't being all that well adopted, and monitoring to, in a sense, wasn't. But today, what I think health systems and doctors and everybody realizes that technology as an enabling tool in healthcare actually is really good. And so what we're seeing is adoption that I hadn't seen before. Nothing like in the last 3 months or 4 months that preceded it. And that's to me what has, I think, been the most amazing thing, is just everybody getting on board with the use of technology within healthcare.
Yeah.
That's
on that note, I'm calling it quits, and I'm gonna tell all the viewers and listeners to click that subscribe button and get us to Joe Rogan status. And I want to say that Bill is the first guest again that I took a shot of digital health therapy.
Yes, I did.
But also just plowed through our rules of not mentioning those words like nonstop. So, but I don't know if he knew that rule. So, but he didn't
Well, I
care.
didn't, and I saw a sign, but I only mentioned it in context of what we're doing.
So anyway,
Awesome.
all right.
Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you, everybody.
Have a good one.